I'm Nicole. I am a 36-year-old mother of two. I have two boys. Stephen is 4.5 and Michael will be 2 in October. I reached out for help twice now. The first time I was about 8 weeks postpartum. I did all the first time mom stuff. I gave myself some wiggle room for the baby blues to pass over. And I think it was at my son's 8-week checkup that I told his pediatrician, you know, something's just not right. I just don't feel like myself. And she wrote me a prescription right away, and then recommended that I see my primary care and set up further therapy. And I didn't do that right away. I took the prescription and I sat on it for a while. And then when I finally, it was probably a couple weeks later, when I finally decided to take it, I wasn't in communication with a therapist. I wasn't in communication with my primary care. I just went off of what my son's pediatrician gave me. And it was not the best combination. I believe it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks in, and vertigo symptoms started to kick in. And it was scary to the point that I just stopped. I didn't continue to take the medication. I didn't follow up with anybody. I didn't follow the right channels or procedures to make sure that I was taking care of what needed to be taken care of. It was maybe a couple months after that I decided, hey, I'm gonna try and find a therapist. And it was great. We worked on a lot of mindfulness exercises to keep me present in the here and now. I wasn't feeling anything bad towards my kids. I was just comparing myself to every other mom that I'd meet at the playground, every other mom I'd see at the grocery store, everything I'd see in books and magazines. I just compared myself to everybody. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to take my son anywhere. I was afraid to bring him in public because, God forbid, somebody hurt us or something bad happened or we get in a car accident. I wanted to keep his life close and precious. And that was very detrimental to both him and I. Seeking therapy that first time was great. Mindfulness exercises, I was able to learn how to cope in the moment. But there were still a lot of things that were left buried and untouched. So when I found out I was pregnant the second time, I reached out to my OB and I let her know, I'm afraid I'm gonna have postpartum again. What can we do to prevent this from happening? My entire pregnancy, every checkup, we talked about, how are you feeling? How do you feel getting ready for another baby? Do you feel like you're prepared for this? And it was night and day difference between my first pregnancy and going into it blind and being a first-time mom, and now this one, having 2 years of a child under my belt and knowing what postpartum felt like. I was able to meet it head on. And while I didn't address the issue immediately following the birth of my second child, it was a few months after that I mentioned it to my primary care physician. I felt like this time it was, we needed to go through the right channels. And so I reached out to my primary care physician, touched base, and I got a referral for therapy and a new prescription. And I was so scared. But I started the meds. And we started slow this time so that I didn't have that vertigo issue. And allowed it to build up in my system before we upped it to a higher dosage. I coupled that with actual therapy this time. And it's been an amazing 2 years. I have been able to focus on my past traumas, my childhood traumas, trauma behind me being a recovering drug addict. I've been able to address past sexual abuse and physical abuse, mental abuse, and we are in the throes of it right now. But it feels so incredible to be able to say that I've put in the work and I'm following through and I'm doing better. Every day is a struggle, but I'm doing better. And it is a night and day difference between me thinking I had to do this by myself and being afraid to even reach out to the people that are there to help. I have set up amazing boundaries for myself, and that was one thing that I did not have for myself or my child before. The benefits that I've seen have been astronomical. I first noticed that something was changing when I had my first in-person therapy. I had had 2 weeks of telehealth therapy, and that was fine. That was nice getting to know, the staff and everything over, Zoom meetings. But actually going to talk to somebody is a lot different. And having these last couple years of the pandemic, all we've known is a virtual world, and having to step foot back into that real society was huge. But I didn't notice that anything was changing and that the meds were working until my husband asked, "Are you nervous?" And I had to think about it. I didn't feel this pit. There was not this overwhelming sense of dread. I was excited to go and meet a new person and discuss what I needed to do to heal. I noticed that I was able to get up in the morning and get out of bed. I put clothes on. I took a shower. I did my hair and my makeup, and I actually started to care again. I felt confident in moving forward in my medication. I felt confident in setting boundaries for myself. I've never been able to do that in my entire life, and I set boundaries that have sort of upset people, have sort of driven a wedge in between relationships, but at the same time, they're boundaries that I'm not falling from. And I'm not backing down from them. And it was either hop on board or don't. And that's just where we're at now. I feel a lot more confident and strong discussing my journey and sharing my story. I've never shied away from my drug abuse or my alcohol abuse. I've always been very open, and I have almost 7 years of sobriety. And in that 7 years, I've had to learn how to be a sober person. Then I had to learn how to be a mom. Then I had to learn how to be a person during a pandemic, and we were quarantined. And now I have to learn how to be a mom in recovery, in therapy, and on meds. And it's a whole other world. Every day is a different world. But every day is a different world, and it's exciting. And I get to step foot out of my house and feel good. And I haven't felt that for a long time. Doesn't mean that everything has changed. I have taken some drastic steps to work on some pretty serious issues that I think I've suffered from for my entire life. I finally have an answer for why I feel the way that I feel. I have my feelings and my thoughts validated, and that is a huge benefit. It is incredibly disheartening when you are screaming into a void for people to listen and for somebody to just say, "I'm sorry for how you feel." And nobody listens, and there are people there that should be listening. So to feel like I have made a difference in my future, that is a huge benefit. I look forward to going to therapy every week. I look forward to sharing with my friends and my family where I'm at in my journey. And I'm not afraid or ashamed to talk about who I am, where I've been, and where I'm going. If I can just help one person seek therapy or even admit to themselves, like, hey, I might have a problem. I might need some help. If only one person feels that way, and I will feel like I've done something good with my life. This question is so important, because I don't think it's just a message to somebody going through postpartum depression or recovery or addiction. This is a message to our community, our society. Telling somebody, hey, I am seeing a therapist and I am on medication, is still met with such disdain. We're told and we're taught that that's something we need to keep to ourselves. And I don't agree. If you are suffering, please don't suffer in silence. The state of Colorado has a million resources available, not only for postpartum, but also for just depression, anxiety. If you're feeling down, there are resources available. Use them. They're here for us to utilize. Reach out to your friends and your family. Even just telling somebody, I'm not feeling okay today. Somebody's going to hear. And somebody's going to be able to say, like, hey, let's go grab a coffee and let's talk about it. Or do you want to come play with me and my kids? It will help. It will help, I promise. Don't give up. And don't feel like something is wrong with you, because there's not. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that postpartum doesn't just affect moms. Depression isn't a gender discriminatory issue. Postpartum affects fathers as well. And chances are you know a dad that has suffered with it. And the only difference with women, mothers seeking postpartum depression assistance, and fathers doing it, is we are taught that men have to be strong. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to feel bad. You're not allowed to show your emotion. You're not allowed to show that you're depressed. Depression is just being sad, and you need to stop being sad. And that is something that we need to squash as a society. We need to accept that depression doesn't care if you are male or female. Postpartum depression doesn't care. It can affect anybody, and it's not fun, and it is incredibly isolating, and it is incredibly frustrating and sad and disappointing to deal with. Reach out. If you need help, say something to anybody, and there are resources that you can stay anonymous. I promise, even just saying something will help. Letting others know that you feel a certain way might help other people admit that they feel that way as well. There's a quote that came from my most favorite TED Talk, and it discusses our struggles with hard situations. And they say we need to stop comparing our hard and just commiserate on the fact that hard is hard. Who are you to say that your hard is any different than mine? Admitting that I have to take medication every day in order to regulate my moods or to feel like I am being the best mother that I can be is no different than my neighbor having to tell his wife that he wants a divorce, or my neighbor having to call her children and tell them that their father died. Hard is hard, and we need to stop comparing our hard with each other's hard and just commiserate on the fact that hard is hard, life is hard, and it sucks sometimes. But we're not alone, and we have people out there that are willing to help. And if you need help, I'm willing to help. All it takes is talking, and all it takes is just listening. If you need help, there are people here to help you.